Okay, I'll call the regular meeting of the East Lyme Water and Sewer Commission to order for March 28th, 2023. Will you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Ben, you said we have, just make sure your mic's on when you talk.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, so I have a item I wanted to add to the agenda for construction phase services for the I-95 interchange project.
Okay, how about if we make it 5A, since that's what we're talking about, stuff like that. So what would it be for 5A?
Sounds good.
What would the topic be?
Discussion and possible action on construction phase services for I-95 interchange 74.
Is there a motion to add it?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? It's on. Okay, moving on for the minute approval. First one will be for the regular meeting minutes of February 28th.
Move approval.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Comments? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm going to
Abstention. Yep. Yep.
Karen, I abstain on February 28th.
Okay, and then to move on for the approval of the minutes of the public hearing from March 2nd, 2023.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed and abstentions?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay, 2 abstentions. Okay, now delegations. Would anyone, he wants me to introduce the new member. So Ken Roberts has joined the board to replace a long-term tradition. You're replacing Joe Mingo, so welcome,
Okay.
Ken. Thank you for volunteering to serve. Ken has served for a long time on youth services, so he's going to continue to dedicate some time to the community.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Delegations. Anyone like to address the board on any item on the agenda tonight? Okay, seeing none, we're going to have discussion and possible action on the Annick Village capacity request. This is what the public hearing dealt with back on March 2nd. There was a lot of people came and asked some really good questions and so forth. Had a lot of clarifications on some items and so forth like that. Ben, do you want to kick off the discussion?
Yes, so obviously, Kevin had mentioned we had some good discussion on March 2nd at the public hearing regarding the the issues surrounding the potential development. Developer was originally asking for 110,000 gallons of capacity, and as I'm sure everyone here is aware on the commission that we don't have a lot of capacity left, and we're up against our capacity limitations based on the agreement that we have with New London and Waterford, where we send our sewage flows to New London for treatment. So that being said, we looked at possible alternatives on what types of capacity that we thought we could grant. We had some discussion about that. I have a recommendation that I would make, but before I go any further, I wanted to see if there's any more discussion that the board had or questions that they wanted to have answered.
Okay, town attorney, would you like to add anything before opening up to questions, anything like that? And I'll offer the same opportunity for Mr. Harris as well.
Yeah, this is one where we want to put the resolutions in.
Not yet. No, let's hold off on any resolutions right now.
Mr. Chairman, what we have done is we've prepared some...
Ed, you're going to have to sit down and talk into the mic.
What we have done is we've prepared some resolutions, which I would like to hand to you for consideration by the commission. And the resolutions are identical on the first page and almost identical on the second page. And so that we can distinguish between them, one of them is gold and the other is blue. So you won't have to refer to them by reading them all the time. And one of them is a resolution denying the proposed request for capacity, and that's the gold one. And the other one is the resolution perhaps granting in part the request for a capacity allocation, and that's the blue one. And I would like to hand them out at this time.
Yeah. Hook them out and take, hand them out for
I'll give one to the, one of each to the clerk. Give me one back so I can give it to Carol. Yeah, thanks.
Ed, do you have anything else you'd like to add right now, or before I turn it, ask if the applicant, counsel would like to speak?
And while we're doing some housework, I think if we want to make sure that those who are here tonight who may not have been at the public hearing would perhaps want to say for the record whether or not they have reviewed the tape of the public hearing and the exhibits submitted at the public hearing so that they would be able to vote.
Dave, would you like to comment?
Yes, for the record, I was not at the public hearing, however, I looked at the YouTube video and I reviewed the minutes of the meeting and the handouts by the applicant, so I'm prepared to talk.
Ken?
For the record, I have reviewed the minutes, but not the full record, and I'm prepared to abstain from the vote tonight.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Good. So that's important.
Okay, I'll ask, Ted, are you speaking on behalf of the applicant? Any?
You can't speak.
Okay, anyone speaking on behalf of the applicant tonight? Bob?
Well, I think we said it.
Just come up to the mic and just say.
No, I'll just repeat what we did last time and say this is a great job for the town, great job for everybody here. And I hope you can give us a pretty nice capacity so we can, what we talked about, which,
Mr. Chairman, the hearing is closed, so the commission can't take any further evidence or
Right, I just want.
entertain any further comments.
Okay,
okay.
thank you, Bob. Okay. Okay, moving on to discussion. Anyone like to comment or make any, start the discussion?
Maybe you want to take some time to review the proposed resolution.
Right. I got to see him earlier today, so that's not fair.
Mr. Chairman, the reason we did it in a fairly elaborate fashion is we learned from experience in the landmark litigation that there was not very large explanation of why we voted in a particular manner, and we wanted to make sure there was a good, solid explanation of why the commission would be voting as it did. The first page of the resolutions are identical. On the second page, the difference is in the amount of gallons referred to in the denial talks about 882 gallons per day, and the partial grant talks about 137,000 gallons per day. Mr. North would be able to explain why there's a differential there. And the last paragraph, of course, is different in each one.
Right, and I think, Ben, this is something you explained, I believe, at the public hearing quite a bit, so
Yeah.
just if you have anything on it.
Yeah, as Attorney O'Connell mentioned, and Mr. Siri, there's two different numbers that we look at here. One, the 882 is the amount where that is left over for capacity on the 5-year look back, where we consider the amounts of capacity that I've calculated would need to be remaining for existing buildings that are in sewer assessed areas but are opt-in assessments, so single family homes and that sort of thing, that are on septic systems and existed before septic or sewer was run through their areas, and had an opt-in assessment where they would choose whether or not to connect. So that number was 76,000, and then there was another 60,000 that was a calculation that was based on vacant properties in these same areas that, if built upon, would be allowed to tie into the system, but as of yet have not tied in. And that's a bit of a rough calculation based on the type of zone that the parcel was located in, whether it be a residential or commercial, that matter. The 137 then is the total of those two combined. So again, existing buildings, but that are assessed but have not tied in, and vacant properties that could tie in those areas. So that's the 137,000 that's part of that calculation.
Thank you. Questions, comments on the topic? Carol?
In the gold resolution, you talk about the 882 gallons per day available, but there was a second presentation which dealt with looking at the 2-year average of the most recent 2 years, and if that average is used, that we wouldn't even have the 882. We would be negative 749,000 gallons. And the concern is that the most recent 2 years are what's real and what's happening, and it looks like that is also where the trend is going, that we're trending down, and the concern is that we're starting with a higher, in other words, shouldn't we be looking more seriously at the 2-year average as opposed to the 5-year average?
Okay.
So this was something that we did debate, and based on the fact that the 2-year average does show a situation that would put us at a negative situation as we stand right now, and where we wouldn't necessarily be able to accept any kind of tie-in. We wanted it to reflect the 5-year average, where we would be able to at least give the the understanding that we do have some capacity left, but not nearly enough for a large development like this.
Other,
Well, I guess,
Maybe Ed can elaborate on that a little bit, based on the.
Yeah, well, the draft talks about is that if we keep the 882 gallons per day of available sewer treatment capacity, this would be a statement by the commission that there is some gallons per day left for the commission to allocate to various people who come and ask for connections to the sewer system. If it were a minus amount, the sewer commission, the water and sewer commission would be saying that there is no available capacity at all for anyone else to ever connect to the system until we get some additional capacity from some other place. So we thought it would be, I think Mr. North would say that it's better to state as an official statement of the commission that there is some available capacity remaining. Is that correct, Mr. North?
other comment?
I
Dave.
just have one. Just to clarify, okay, in the,
Dave, can you pull up the mic closer to you? Thank you.
just to clarify, with capacity, we have never exceeded our capacity. So this is a what-if situation. If everybody ties in, like I'm standard, I'm on Smith Street, sewer goes by my house, I'm not tying into the sewer in the next 3 or 4 years. And legally, do we as a commission, can we use that capacity if people haven't paid the assessment? Are they a ticket holder guaranteed by just because the sewer goes by their house? Or can we give that capacity out and then have to shop 5, 10 years from now for more capacity for the people that haven't tied in? That's my question.
Well, I'm not sure what the question is, or whether it's a comment or a question.
Well, do we, as the commission, all this 130,000 gallons of capacity, this 130,000 gallons of capacity
Yeah.
is a phantom number, right? For vacant lots, people that aren't tied in, because the sewer, and it's the benefit sewer assessment, but you don't pay that benefit assessment until you want to tie in, okay? So why is that capacity gobbled up and doesn't allow us to develop? We're looking for payers. We're looking, as a commission, we're a business, right? We're looking for people, we're paying for capacity, we've paid for the sewer treatment plant, and now we have all this capacity that we can't get paid for because people aren't tied in. Can we give this capacity for development?
Well, I think that the way we use that type of situation in our calculations, I think we use those as an example of what we call ticket holders.
Correct.
Being the analogy that if we are talking about a stadium and the stadium is going to be filled up, and certain people who have vacant lots that the main has gone past and they have paid their assessment or are willing to pay their assessment when it's time, they have a right to connect up because they've paid their assessment. In other words, they basically are ticket holders who can get into the stadium when it's time, even though they're not in there now. This is the analogy. We've used that over the years. And you're right, it's not a hard and fast number. It might not occur for 5, 10, 15 years or ever. So it's sort of a phantom amount. But we have to keep it in mind that we're obliged to give that capacity to that person or persons or owner of that property when the time comes that that person asks to be connected. So we can't ignore the fact that it is possible or probable that that will occur. So we have to keep it in mind that we owe that to those types of properties. And it is a type of a number that might not be called into play for 10 years, 5 years, or partially, or some of them and not all of them. So we can't exactly look forward and put a precise number on that.
But they also don't generate any revenue for the sewer department or water department.
That's right.
And so we're paying for X amount of gallons to transmit into New London with no revenue stream for those properties.
Well, they're not generating any gallons, so they're not incurring any overhead for that.
We're paying for X amount of capacity, right? We should max our capacity out
Well,
if, as a
that's
business part of it.
That's a matter for the consideration of
Okay.
the commission, but you got to have some sound business practice. You have to hold some amount in reserve to allocate to your customers, and in the event they come into your door and say, here you are, here I am, I want my connection, and I've paid for it. So that's what we call the ticket holders.
But all right, like, prime example, me, I'm a, quote, ticket holder, benefit assessment, but I haven't paid a penny because I'm not tied in and I haven't committed. So does that fall under the same parameter? All the people going up Boston Post Road were benefit assessment. They don't pay until they tie in. Are they ticket holders, or should someone like me, if I don't tie in within a certain time frame, should my rate be higher based on when I tie in? I mean, are those...
The people on the Boston Post Road have assessments levied against their properties.
But you don't have to pay them until
They
you...
don't necessarily become due
Okay.
until they exercise that right. But if you go to the land records, their assessments are levied against those properties.
Okay.
So it's part of the calculation that the commission has to make, and that's why we said 882 gallons are available rather than a minus number, and that's where it is. It's a draft motion for the commission to consider.
Oh, Carol, I'm going to let everybody else have a chance to talk before we go back to the second question. Other comments?
Yeah.
Dave?
I think what Dave was driving at was that there's basically a gap between the allocated capacity and the actual usage, okay? And that's a pretty substantial gap.
That's where.
And that gap is going to run forever.
Could.
I've been on the commission for over 20 years, and it's always been that way. I think what we have to be concerned about is our actual usage. And when that number starts approaching 1 million gallons, then we're in trouble. But we got a long way to go before we get there. It's not going to happen this year. It's not going to happen in the next couple of years. But what we have to do is rededicate ourselves to finding more capacity. We can't stop the growth of this town because of some phantom number that Dave mentioned.
Okay. David, Steve, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I agree with Dave and what both Dave said. Also, when we approved the orchards, it's very similar to what we're dealing with now. It's almost exactly the same. And discussion on capacity was never really played a role in that decision. And also, running that main all the way up down Route 1 was a benefit for the town. As well as if we run this main up on Penn Ave, I think it's a benefit for the town. And I think it's inevitable that we're going to be seeking additional capacity out of New London, probably within at least 5 years. And I'm hearing that New London and Waterford may be doing the same thing. So I think we should approve this.
And that's why the blue resolution has a higher number. So we've done that range
Okay.
for the commission's consideration.
Okay. Were you going to say something, Dave? I was on the Dave end of the table, so, Okay. Roger, anything?
All right, we're doing okay.
Okay. Carol, you wanted to say something additional?
Yeah, I'm concerned because, and I understand what you're saying about the 882 and you want to have, but I'm concerned that what we're seeing in terms of actual usage over the last 2 years is more accurate to reality. And so even though it would be nice to have the 882 number and showing that we still have some balance even after we take out the 137, I think we're already at a point in reality, based on actual usage, that we're in negative territory. And my concern is that we are at the point where we really need to seriously talk about buying capacity. And my concern is that we don't know how much capacity is available for sale. We don't know what it might cost, and we haven't budgeted to date yet anything to purchase capacity. And that if we're going to approve a project, knowing that to meet our existing obligations as people hook up, we're putting ourselves in a purchase situation, that we need a new policy in terms of other revenue to help to pay for that. I mean, we you know, because it's different when somebody is getting capacity based on what we originally got out of our deal with New London. But now we'd be getting more capacity than what was originally agreed to in the tri-state agreement, because any capacity that we purchase is going to be above our 1.5 million allotment. And I'm not sure what that would do in terms of other costs, in terms of the calculations is that going to change our percentage on things because now we purchased this extra capacity? I mean, I think there are a lot of issues to sort out in terms of the cost to purchase. And I think that my thoughts are that this request might be best put in a delay situation or a hold situation where we get more data about what capacity is available to purchase, what's that going to cost, and how can we better address revenue to make those purchases, but to just give away capacity and say, oh, we'll just buy it. I mean, and that sets a terrible precedent. I mean, that means anyone wants capacity, well, we'll just buy more, and we don't have the revenue. What it's, you know, maybe it should be shared. I mean, you know, in terms of we would need a vehicle to recoup. Maybe we need if something is approved based on purchase capacity, that the developer might have to pick up, you know, some of the cost. That maybe, you know, if it's going to foster economic development for the town, maybe a percentage of the cost should be picked up by the town. Should it, to just have everything be on the ratepayer when we don't even know what it might cost, and I think that it needs to be done in a more planful way, because we're getting into new territory now where we're considering making an approval where we know it's going to lead us to have to purchase capacity to meet other existing obligations. We'd basically be putting a big hole in our reserve to meet existing obligations. So I think that we need to be more thoughtful about how we proceed. And I think we need to have something that deals with the revenue to help pay for additional capacity. I mean, like I said, we don't even know what's available and how much it will cost. And, you know, so, you know, we're approving something with who knows what it might cost. And
This is the project that illuminates the very issue you're talking about, and I think the third line from the bottom of the first page is illustrative of the fact that the commission has wide discretion in connection with the decision to supply sewer service to particular properties. And that's the discretion you're being asked to exercise in connection with this application. And you do have a good deal of facts from the public hearing, and that's why we gave you this range ranging from a straight denial up to a certain amount that you might want to consider granting to the applicant.
Carl does bring up some good points about there are a lot of issues to sort out. This will bring now to the forefront our need to address the need for additional capacity. And the contract the Tri-Town agreement does provide a mechanism to do that. And here again, I was talking with Ben earlier today, with the expansions and the construction going on in Waterford and New London, they might be starting to feel a little bit of the pinch too. But even at the 2-year look back, it's only when we look at the ticket holders that are needing even close to coming on that we even get close to a capacity. It would take people over the next few years to just abundantly coming in on a regular basis, and I don't foresee that happening. To ask the developer to hold off, we can't do that. I mean, they have plans, they've come before us, they rightfully have a decision, get an answer from us, yes or no, not wait until we figure out what to do. That's upon us, not upon them. And I think the ticket holder thing is good too. I mean, I'm on it, and you know, Ed, you made the comment that like you're a ticket holder at a stadium. But if I paid for the tickets, then I can. But if I'm just standing outside and said, yeah, hold my ticket, I'll let you know in a couple of days whether I want it. That's a little different. Here again, and this is a little tough because Steve, you mentioned it's a business. It's incumbent upon us to try and do something. This is good for the town because you know, you talk about rates. We're getting a sewer line installed from roughly Oswegatchie Hill, a little beyond that, all the way down to Main Street. Whether or not we have the capacity now, the infrastructure will be there to expand in the not too distant future. It won't be 20 years, it'll be a few years. But then other people might be able to tie in, and that'll be a savings to the town at that point in time. Because I do wear that hat too. You know, this is where I'm sitting here, and I'm getting kind of tugged, not tugged, but you know, water and sewer is separate from the town, but yet, you know, I have to think about the other side too, and I do. I think we owe it to the developer to give them an answer tonight. I think we've had some good discussion, at least on my part, as to the fact that we do have some because there's ticket holders that aren't even on the horizon for being added to the thing. I'm a little uncomfortable with the full capacity requested, but I am comfortable moving forward with some capacity in this. I don't know if anyone wants to discuss in that area.
I'd like to know what that number is. If we were to grant a partial, do you have a number in mind?
Yeah, we've discussed it internally, and we feel that about half of what the developer is looking for, 55,000 gallons per day, would be a reasonable amount given what capacity we do have left, and you know, with being appreciative of the economies of scale that the developer needs to have in order to make this viable for him.
Would that limit the size of the construction for a developer?
It could, but you know, there are some other avenues that could be looked at. You know, one of them is reuse water, recycle water. That could be something that the developer could look at that could offset some of their sewer capacities, or even some sort of hybrid system. You know, if they were looking to entertain something like that. That's getting a little bit out of my wheelhouse. That'd be something they'd have to talk to the Department of Health about.
Yeah.
But you know, certainly we would love to entertain some, you know, reuse options if that were something that they were thinking seriously about, given the capacity issues. That would not only help our sewer capacity, but also the demand on water.
Thank you.
Dave, you haven't spoken yet. Go ahead.
I assume you're talking about some sort of a brown water system?
Yeah, gray water. Yeah, yep.
And I think that's, you know, very, you know, with ecology and everything, that's come a long ways and everything like that. And I think that's great. My only concern is the amount of or close proximity to Dodge Pond and that. So it would have to be very well engineered to make sure we're not getting runoff into that pond.
Yeah, yeah. Again, like I said, I don't know if the Department of Public Health would recognize anything like that. I've never heard of an approach in that regard. But in terms of the rainwater, the recycle system, that would be a closed loop system that would still discharge to sewer. You would just have a situation where water could be used twice.
Yeah. And then the second thing there is the difference between the two different reviews, the 5-year and the 2 years, is that 50, I think it's 57,000 gallons per day. And I know that we've had discussion in their presentation and everything that they took some, you know, by using the project out on West Main Street, they came up with some lower numbers for the things, but we also felt that they were very conservative. And
Yeah, we've adopted the subsurface disposal guidelines as part of our regulations, and that was the criteria that was used to evaluate this development, which does allow you to use existing facilities with a safety factor.
okay, so that the numbers they brought from the other facility had a safety factor added onto it.
Yeah, so that was a HEPA that was used, which was single occupancy. So that average was doubled, and then we added a 50% safety factor to it. For obviously for a 1-bedroom, two persons per bedroom type situation.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. Other people that spoke once before? Any? Okay, Carol?
I'm deeply concerned because we don't know what capacity is available for sale. And even when we talk about the 55,000, you know, the difference, as Dave said, that between the 5-year and the 2-year is roughly around 50,000. I don't have the whole math, but it's in that category. And I think that, you know, we're just tight with capacity. It's not the answer we want as a town. We'd love to have more capacity, but the reality is staring us in the face. And I think that before we move forward, at the very least, we should find out how much capacity is for sale and get a ballpark of cost. Because to just approve capacity and then we're on the hook to purchase it because we've obligated, and that's going to put us in a very bad fiscal position in terms of negotiating a price, or, I mean, we're going to be caught that we have to buy it. And then what on earth happens legally if, because of building that's going on in Waterford and building that's going on in New London, that what they're willing to sell at any price is not going to cover our needs, and you know, and ticket holders are, I mean, we have to at least find out what's available for sale and what the price is, how we figure out the revenue and how we're going to pay for it. But to just approve where we just don't have that data is putting us in a very, very tough situation.
Carol, I don't necessarily agree with that, because here again, you're assuming that everybody that can possibly have capacity comes on in the next year, and that's not going to be the case. I mean, we have, obviously there's, as I had her sell at the last meeting, I think 3 times I was asked 118,400 gallons. Charlie, remember? That's not even, that's a long way off before that. So I don't think we're putting, it's a bad situation to put in. We need to have to look at, and we can move forward. And here again, the state isn't even close to using what they have for capacity as well. So I don't think we're putting ourselves in a position where within the next 6 months or a couple of years, we're going to have a problem with capacity. I think we're in a good spot there, and because all these people aren't going to be coming on, and now we can start looking forward to even talking with the state to how to enhance our capacity and talk with, start beginning discussions on moving forward. But to hold up someone or just basically stop development in the town because of what might happen, which would be years even if it went into place. I'm not sure I'm there. Dave?
With the safety factor built in, what's the realistic number that this project will use? 75,
I can only give you basic calculations based on the guidelines.
right? 75, 80, 80,000 gallons?
He's not gonna tell you.
Right? Well, I'm just, you're right, okay.
I couldn't,
and-
I couldn't.
Okay, and to address Carol a little bit, you've got to realize too that if Waterford and New London, if they're growing out, and they have to, any improvements that are made to New London, we're entitled to a percentage of that capacity. So it's gonna happen, it has to happen. And so that's a matter of, it's part of, this whole thing's gonna evolve. I mean, and we can't stifle growth for multiple reasons, and that really we don't even have to discuss here. This is the sewer commission, not the tax assessor, not the inland wetlands, all that. But and I don't know, can I make a motion? I want to make a motion to grant them 75,000 gallons of capacity based on safety factors.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further comments?
Definitely.
Okay, Roger gets to go first.
ahead.
Go ahead and take,
I'd prefer it to be a lower number to the 55 that the staff had calculated, being half of that 110,000 gallon capacity.
What
That's
is-
just my opinion.
What does that do to, can the developer address that?
Well, that's not our decision, that's the developers.
Yeah, but does that kill this project?
well, here again, as you said, that's not our decision to make. Ours is what
Do it or not.
capacity we feel we can give them, and moving forward. Dave?
We've been kicking this can down the road as long as I've been on the commission, and it's really shame on us that we haven't proactively, done more of our homework on seeing what we can do, The state has closed the prison out there, but they're still holding the full amount as if the prison's open. Rocky Neck, whether they ever build out and tie in, and the main that goes up into the camp is traditionally very, very low on their allotment and stuff. Matter of fact, they gave us some of that allotment to tie in Pine Grove, so and we're still not in trouble, so. Point of Woods is mandated, that's the state of Connecticut, Rocky Neck, so I think there's a lot of things that we should be investigating and seeing what we can do. And it's shame on us because, we've kicked the can down the road for a couple of years with Landmark and everything like that. And now we're all of a sudden being backed up against the wall and asked for a decision. And I think we need to give them at least a positive answer, whether the number is 55 or 75 or whatever. I think that we need to keep people that want to come in town and put a quality development into town and provide housing for people that are, senior housing is the biggest thing going now, and so I think this is a good project, and I'd like to see us try to work with the developer and try to work ourselves out of our problem with capacity. Not hold him responsible for our not really doing what we should have been doing for 2 years now.
Any other people, second time before I go back to Carol? Dave?
I'm also.
Okay, are you all set? Anyone else? Carol?
Again, I agree that we've got work to do, but I think that we're setting a dangerous precedent if we're approving capacity that we know we're going to have to purchase capacity. I mean, we need to know, at a minimum, what capacity is available to be purchased, the amount, and we need to know what that's going to cost, and we need to have something in place for when buying capacity is going to be involved. in terms of the treatment plant um, and expansion at the treatment plant, we already have an agreement with the state of Connecticut that should the treatment plant expand and have more capacity available at the treatment plant, we have to absorb Point of Woods back into our allotment. It goes away from the state's allotment and becomes the responsibility of the town. That's 105,000 gallons. And we also have to absorb Pine Grove, which, so already, even when the treatment plant expands, we're already have committed around 150,000 gallons, already committed to existing projects.
And they're paying too, though. That's my point, is we need, our ratepayers, we need customers. All we're doing is every year going up on our rates, going up. We need more ratepayers so we can blend this out. I think we should max our capacity out. That's my opinion.
I think that we have to figure out what capacity is available to purchase and what it's going to cost.
Okay, Carol, you've mentioned that several
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
Carol, I appreciate it,
I'm
but
very
we...
deeply concerned.
Call the
Okay.
question, Mr. Chairman.
I got one more.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, call to the question. If it's just called, it has to be voted on. So is there a second for calling the question?
Second.
Seconded. Okay, this is, and it's not debatable, so we have to vote on it. All those in favor of the 75,000 gallon allotment per day signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No?
Pardon?
Want a show,
She wants to know who said aye.
want a show of hands?
Oh, yeah, we'll do a show of hands. All those in favor, show of hands.
Aye.
Opposed? One abstention.
Abstention.
One abstention. So it is so on the resolution. Ed, I have to ask you this. We have a number now. Do we have to read this whole resolution into the record?
No, I don't know. As long as the commission has familiarized itself with the details of the resolution, feels comfortable adopting it, you don't have to read it in full. It's going to be part of the record that the public will be able to familiarize itself with, so you don't have to read it in full.
Good, because that will take as long as where we've gotten so far now. So anyway, so the question's been called and voted on, and that item has, we'll move on to our next item. If those of you that are here would like to for this part, would like to head off, that's quite all right, rather than sit, because I understand. And Bob, our condolences to you on the loss in your family today.
I'll call Bobby.
Okay. Mute the mic real quick.
Sounds like it's gonna go for a while, but
The thing is, we've been doing this battle for 5 years, 6 years, and we lost in court to landowners.
Yes.
We're not using
I only
And
have
now
one.
they got, my home
Yeah.
court says they
No.
get their 100,000,
Okay.
and we can't use that, and he's not, he does use it great, but we're, every year we're going up 5%, 7%, right? Well, we need ratepayers, that's what we need, in my opinion.
Elizabeth, taking off on this now? Okay. Okay, continuing,
I should stay for the,
set a public hearing date for sewer assessment as, do we have a recommendation for a date for that?
Yes, next Water and Sewer Commission meeting, 4/25 at 6:30.
Okay, do we have a motion to read for this? Okay.
Motion to add the
Set
Schedule
a
A.
public hearing
Yeah.
for sewer assessments.
We got it first, but we didn't get a second on the public.
Okay. Okay, moved by Steve, second by Roger, and it'll be on
For April 25th,
April 25th at
6:30.
6:30.
And Ed wanted to, I'm sorry, Attorney O'Connell wanted to add a couple words.
What are you talking about, for the assessments?
Yep.
For all those assessments?
Yeah.
Okay. These are assessments that are different types of assessments. Some of them are residential assessments, others are commercial assessments, and one assessment will be fairly new type of assessment, which is the one on 185 Main Street, which is a condominium. That's the Sift Bakery, which is have residences on the top and stores on the bottom. So that's a different type of, yet another type of assessment. So we'll be presenting that at the next hearing for a public hearing. Is that correct? And we have to publish in advance. So we'll have to really get going on that very quickly to do it by April 25.
Well, don't look at us, look at Ben.
Okay,
That'll do it.
might I be excused?
You may be excused. Tracy, thank you.
May I be excused?
You may be excused too.
May I? They close at 9.
Okay, moving on, the next thing is the item we added to the agenda. If you'd like to go through this with us, Ben?
Yep. So now that we've entered the construction phase of the project with the Exit 74 interchange I-95 project, I need to create a separate PO for the construction services that Weston and Sampson will be performing in terms of the review of the design and inspection services that they're going to be performing on our behalf for the project work. So now that we're in that phase, I need to appropriate money for that portion of the project. This was already included in the estimate that was given to the state some time ago, so this is just a matter of formality. But it's already been approved by the state, and now I need to secure the I would call it the account and have that created so that we can expend that money and then be reimbursed at the end of the project. So I have a motion prepared, and I can bring that up now.
Here to Mr. Murphy, he's our motion reader.
Prepared motions.
And Paul, you grab the microphone.
Make a motion to appropriate and transfer $12,600 in the Sewer Assessment Fund 3 from resources available to account titled DOT Construction Phase Engineering Services to fund ongoing engineering services and inspection work.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further comment or discussion?
Just a question, does this qualify as a capital expense against the SAF?
It counts as a reimbursable on engineering.
We're getting the money back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Account that we will be reimbursed at the end of the project, so
Yes.
it's
Yeah,
a
that-
trade account.
That's the word we wanted to hear, reimbursable.
Reimbursed,
So,
I like that.
It's reimbursable.
okay.
100%.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Correspondence law, you see that there. Moving on, there's no billing adjustments or approval of bills. Finance Director, tonight the Board of Finance, the Board of Ed is reporting to the Board of, presenting to the Board of Finance, so Kevin Gervais is up at the other end of town. They're up there. Moving on, anything on meter replacement project? That just, as...
Yeah, typical work. We've been averaging about 200 and a quarter, and we hope by the next read that we'll be about 90% done.
Okay, anything on the tank rehab?
Yeah, this is just a little bit, this is a little bit late breaking, but the tank has been drained. All the cell phone equipment has been relocated off of the tank onto the scaffolding, and the contractor is going to start sandblasting on Monday.
Okay, very good news,
Moving
thank
right
you.
along.
Okay, Joe, now it's up to you. Any questions for Ben on any of that? Okay, none. Moving on to, yeah, that's quick. Joe, water and sewer budgets for fiscal year 23-24.
All right, I did give the commission draft budgets last month. There were some adjustments in numbers, so I apologize if you got really into the weeds and then say there were some numbers that changed a little bit, but that's just the nature of the beast and trying to line everything up. So what I want to go over is, I have this executive summary, just a memo thing that I can just kind of hit the highlights and walk through, but it is just an overarching theme is, I think we're doing a very good job of keeping up with operations, and I think what you're going to find in these budgets is we're getting scary on capital, because we're not funding capital. This whole discussion about capacity, buying capacity, doing all these big projects, the problem is, you know, you have a sewer budget that's 2.4 million this year, 2.5 million. I mean, you could have easily, a next project could be, you know, Brybrook Pump Station could be $5 million. I mean, so the orders of magnitudes of the projects coming forward. On the sewer side, we have the luxury of having a $3.8 million sewer assessment that has to be used wirelessly, but there is money there. On the water side, we have nothing. There's no backup, there's no reserve. So we'll kind of get into that. Let me start with the sewer budget, because that was the one that I kind of touched on in the memo. I'm just going to give you the highlights first, just go over those bullet items, and then I kind of did the sewer budget a little differently this year, if you guys are okay with it, if you don't. But I did kind of go line by line, and I can kind of, the ones that are kind of the line items, like in the past, you just saw the budget, but this year I put in what constitutes that, but also I could just highlight some of the things that are kind of might be either increased or decreased, so it's a little explanation. In the sewer budget, we're proposing, and I remember the commission members should remember that last year we did talk about bringing in some sewer assessment money to pay for some sewer capital into last year's budget. So in this year, we're proposing to do that with $176,000. I'm giving that right now. I'll kind of show you where I have to justify that. On the back side of the revenue sheet, the budget, we obviously approved the budget at the May meeting, but we don't talk about rates till the fall, until the October meeting. But basically, I'm projecting on the sewer side that we're going to be in the range of a 5% across the board rate increase on the sewer side. That could be more. It all depends on revenue. We rely so heavily on the only main item we have on the sewer side is the revenue from the 2 meter reads, because the prison revenues have been going down. So the next bullet item, I really think that this commission should look at, and it's something that staff could help put together, but changing the sewer regs. On the water side, we have a minimum charge, and we've never done that, and by regulation, we can't do that unless you change the regulations. You have the right to do that. But there's a lot of customers, I would say 300-400 customers, that do not use any water consumption, get billed a minimum water rate, do not get billed anything on the sewer side, but they have the ability to flush the toilet, everything is there ready, or you know, they have the ability to use it. So if you instituted in our rate structures a minimum sewer charge, it would have an ability to help offset or create different revenue streams that are very reasonable. Most utilities do have minimum charges because you have the ability to use it. You're hooked up, you have the ability to use it. On the sewer side, we don't.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
300 to 400, you said?
Yeah.
They have
A lot of times the property's down in the beach areas or something. They just don't use any water.
Anymore.
They haven't been there.
Really?
They just don't use the house. But
And this has been going on for how long?
A long time. I mean, that's why we instituted flat water.
No, I understand.
they're not doing anything wrong. I mean, they're getting their $62 or actually $67 minimum water charge every 6 months, and they get zero on sewer.
And based on the analogy I heard tonight, they're paid ticket holders.
Yeah, they're connected.
Oh, they're connected.
They're connected to the sewer already.
They just don't use it.
participate in any of the
Yeah,
maintenance
th-
activities.
This is a house
These are-
hooked up.
These are people that are legitimately counted against capacity.
Oh, yeah, we have to
A few other the highlights on here is, we'll get into is proposing a 10% budget increase on the expenditure side. We'll go through that. There is a new line item for a capital projects of $100,000. I'll get into that. And then I am renaming a few budget line items to be more transparent of what they are. So next thing I'd like to do real quickly is go over, this is the sheet, and I can call any of these sheets up on there if you do, but it's this budget narrative in the sewer side starts with the one that has Mike at the top. This is how the town side does it. It's not exactly, but very similar, is that department heads are required to put what their budget is, compare it to last year's budget, have a differential percentage, and then basically a little background of what it is. So FICA is just the payroll taxes. Vehicle leases, just to let you guys know, in this budget, we're not proposing any additional vehicles in the sewer side. We keep an eye on all the vehicles in the department on the sewer side because of the commission approving. We purchased 2 vehicles in the last year through sewer assessment funds, the service truck. In addition, that's really helped the operations one, because those were capital purchases of, these vehicles will hold on to for 12, 15 years. Salary and wages is up 4.4%. That's just so you know, in your sewer department you have four sewer maintainers, and a half of your utility superintendent. The other half goes to water. The overtime is all the 3-hour minimum call-outs. Every day of the year, someone is covering the sewer department, so there's a $50 stipend associated with that per contract. And then all the weekend, there's 116 days a year. Every Saturday, Sunday, and every holiday, there's someone out there checking on all the pump stations. The personnel benefits, the reason why, benefits in general are going way up, but we've been very fortunate. We have an ever-changing workforces. We have a few newer guys, and those newer people that came in just happen to be, they aren't taking our town's insurance plan. They get a stipend, it's much less. So that's why the increases on the personal benefit sides are a lot less, because on the sewer side we have multiple employees. That can always change, but that's really good for the budget when you're not having to pay those large sums. Treatment plan is up 4% on the budget. I actually was carrying, I have a whole breakdown of how we calculate this number, but I was carrying for New London and Waterford, their increased costs of the plants are going to be in the 8%, but there's other things associated with the true ups every year, so that number, the 3.9% is not too significant. Maintenance of wet wells, the price of that, the main wet wells we clean is down at 90 pump station, one down by Dad's, that Patagonic pump station behind the diner, and then Brybrook. But the cost of these pump station wet well cleanouts is soaring, so we had to put extra money, propose that's up 9.1%. Maintenance of system, it's only up 1,000, but it's just, that covers everything else, and a lot of times it's the manholes and stuff like that. Utilities, just to everyone be prepared, the electric, that's the electric cost of all our 23 pump stations. That number is tame this year, but because we're still piggybacking on the town's electric contracts, which go through December 2024, and we're paying 7.6 on supply. And for all you people at your house that just went up to 23, 7.6 is a bargain. When that runs out at December 24, we're going to be back we're going to be back in the game with everyone else. So that number is going to start soaring, but we're enjoying the benefit of that 5-year contract still. So I just wanted to make sure, and I told the Board of Finance as such. The telephones is pretty much it's all the landlines at the O&M and all the cell phones of all the staff, and it splits up the cell phones of the utility engineer, assistant utility engineer, and utility superintendent. Half those go to water, half goes to sewer. Been really trying to buy the fuels in the town as best, and you guys, the water and sewer piggybacks on the fuel usage of the town, or the town purchases of fuel. But as everyone knows, as you only go to the pump, those prices have been going up. Chemicals is you're going to see this in the water side too. Chemicals we're getting slaughtered with chemical. The cost of chemicals is going way up. This is the bioxide, which you really can't go. You can't really shop bioxide. It's really a one. It's pretty much Evoqua. So it's not like we can like, hey, can you give us the best price? And then they just send us whatever they want. But we've been trying to. We have all the Virtudose systems that just ideally dose the system. So we're doing everything we can to minimize the cost there. But if you can see, the budget this year is 124. The budget next year is 175 because we're tracking to come in at 170 this or 165 this year. So you're going to see that theme on the water side. The salary and wages. It looks like no one's getting a 9% raise, 9.3% raise. What's happening here is that the assistant, Ben's the utility engineer, the assistant utility engineer was being charged 100% to water, and now I'm dividing some of that because he is doing stuff on sewer. So I'm allocating some of that, 35% of that salary to the sewer side, so that's why it's a larger percent. Legal and accounting, we got them out of here tonight early, so I was able to cut their costs. But we've been paying for the Tri-Town agreement and all that stuff, which hopefully, so as long as we don't have too many more sewer
You should have seen the
capacities.
nasty email I got from Joe this week about, because Tracy and Ed were both coming. He said,
Yeah.
"Why are we paying for two?"
Yeah, just for
And
the
I said,
record,
"No,
we're
no,
only paying for one attorney,
no,
not two."
it's just one.
I
They're
just
very
didn't know
clear
why
about
we're
that.
paying
We get two for the price of one."
2 for 1 deal. I like it.
Yeah.
They're gonna stop it.
Outside services, I kind of list what the things that goes into if you ever insurance is going up 3%. Training, it looks like 150%, sounds like a large thing, but it's from 1,200 to 3,000. But there's a lot of confined space and a lot of other OSHA required training, and we have really next to no budget. This is one of the lines that used to be called professional development. It's not really professional development, it's training. But these guys need to have specific training. I have to have money to do that. Another line, meter usage payment. If you guys, there used to be a line called new services and projects, just so everyone's clear what that is. It's not new services and projects, it's meter. That's a payment to the water department for the use of the meters. The sewer just provides piggyback where the water department pays completely for the meter replacement project. They pay completely for all the use, all the meter work orders, the staff to service the meters, do everything on the meters, and then they read the meters. All that stuff comes in by the water admin staff, Tanya, and then she just prints a report and the sewer makes money. That's a good deal. Well, they're paying for it. That's the payment. And it works out to be about $30 a customer. We can adjust that a little bit, and we'll have to look at that in the future, but I thought it was fair. And that's what we've been paying every year. So just so you know, that's what it is. So here's the new line, capital projects. That was not there before. This commission hears Ben come up and can I have 35,000 for this and 20,000 for that, and ask us just to let you guys know in the Tri-Town agreement with New London in Waterford, we put in a small capital projects line just similar to this in the Tri-Town, so that Joe Lanzafami from New London and Veolia can do the smaller items without having to ask permission for everything. So there's still capital projects that come up. They don't meet the intent of a $500,000 project, but there's things, replacing VFDs and all the other stuff that go into that. This is one of the lines that we really need to funding more, because this, instead of having to go dip into capital to sewer assessment all the time, we should have a line in the operating for capital expenses. Contingency still at 50, and operating transfers out is we're starting, and Carol, you'll be happy. This is increasing the payback of, this goes 30 to 50. We're trying to expedite the payment back sewer assessment. I believe we still owe about 400, and I'll get the exact number, but we're still trying to pay back that $1 million loan from like 11 years ago. So that is the, as I said, we're looking at, this is a 10% proposed budget increase. I'm looking at potentially a 5% rate increase. That could be more if need be. But the last item in here is the sewer is the sewer revenue sheet that I have here. If you notice, the only revenues we have coming in, and I highly recommend that we change and do a minimum usage fee, because that will help in revenues. But we have the minimum sewer service, the 600 line. That's the prisons. The minimum water sewer service, the 610 line, that's everyone else in town. So the prisons is billed at once a month, and those if you look from the past, those billings are not growing. If anything, they're shrinking, and the towns are growing with everything that's going on. So besides that, we have some delinquent interest. We have a little bit of inspection fees. The maintenance fees is Spinnaker, the Spinnaker agreement. Permit fees are thing. I mean, we're talking nickels and dimes for a $2.7 million budget. There's nickels and dimes, and then the twice a year town thing is the largest chunk. So there's a line called operating transfers in. Operating transfers in is basically, if you keep going down the sheet, consists of three things, and they all well, there's the middle one, the backwash revenue. So all the wells that are on sewer, well 6, there's four, no, not four. So those wells that they backwash, that goes in the sewer. So they're paying sewer to backwash into. That's the 72,715. We've been always paying for Jeannie downstairs. Sorry, Jeannie's not there, and she retired. Chris is now the admin down there, the sewer admin. But we're paying 75% of that sewer admin's salary, and that's salary, benefits, longevity, FICA, everything. That's the 62,453. And the RAS is the 176,360, which I mentioned before. We're pulling that in from sewer assessment to help fund, from the sewer assessment fund to help fund capital projects. I have a little justification next to a justification for use of sewer assessment funds. So you can't pull sewer assessment funds in to pay for operating expenses. However, you can pay for capital items that are in the operating budget, and that's what we did. So we already have a $100,000 capital projects line item, and then we pay, I say a portion, so 60,000, and this is just, I'm just kind of guessing at numbers, but 60 out of the 80,000 in the mains and pump station is calling it capital, and then the other is capital that goes into the treatment line, the 16. So I feel very comfortable that if ever auditor or anyone questioned it, we're spending 176,360 out of the sewer assessment fund. It is going towards capital items, which is what it should be. And just this commission is the last thing on sewer. The commission struggled with this last year, and if you see in this thing, we put in this line 258,218 in this current year's budget. It looks like we're on the pace to only have to dip into the sewer assessment by 120, so we're 138,000 ahead of the game. That means we have to dip less in the sewer assessment, and that's because the town billings were a lot higher this year because of that drought and everyone was sprinkling and using water like you're going out of style. So is there any, I'll get into water, but I know there's a lot here, but I tried to do a deeper dive into the sewer because we are starting, that capital projects is really important. You know, you guys had this discussion about capacity. There's nothing in here about saving money to try to buy capacity, but going forward, we really got to think about the use of capital and really, if it's a committee, but just really thinking the long-term planning of the commission of this department. So if you have any questions,
Do we need a motion before questions, or just?
No, no.
Okay.
Just so, we're not approving the budget tonight, Ken. We're
Oh,
just
okay.
this is all discussion.
Just discussion.
There's no,
Thank you.
so there's
Thank
no
you for the
motion or anything.
clarification. Sure. So with the 100,000 capital projects, what are the controls? How do you, so you don't have to come here, but what's the process so that an auditor will be satisfied that it was a true capital expenditure?
That's a great question, because we never put the line on there. So that's something that we'd want to work with you guys. And actually, in the Tri-Town agreement, they actually have protocols of what is a capital project. But I just put this 100, I mean, if you guys saw the last budget I gave you last month, it didn't have this line. So I think staff should be providing the commission with what those controls are. I mean, maybe, I'm just throwing out there, it's over $5,000, it's going to have a useful life over 10 years. Some parameters so that's not buying paper and gas, so that's a great point, and I think we should have it.
Track it back.
But I mean, the rest of the commission knows, we're always coming about VFD this, something that it always has to meet the guidelines of useful life and an amount, and the town has that. Like, when you, in our capital budget, you can't put something in for 2,000. There's a threshold for the amount, and it has to be capital. So maybe I can work off of what the town's criteria is.
The sewer water minimum fee, if you just put it as a water and sewer minimum, flat line minimum, don't break it apart, could you juggle that money back and forth legally?
Well, not really, because like you have 6,500
No,
water customers and
that-
3,500
no.
sewer
I
customers.
mean, if
No.
you-
You actually have some sewer customers that aren't water customers.
Vice versa.
So I think you really got to
Yeah.
keep the two separate.
okay, well, I mean, because you're always starving for cash flow on the water side.
And bear in mind, just one thing, we're not talking about it right now, but this commission is going to be having to be in the position we already talked about if you're looking into submarine irrigation systems and taking that out, you're losing revenue, a lot of revenue here. So we need to start looking at ways to change some and improve revenue streams on the sewer side, or you might be in a 20% rate increase. Because, I mean, of the $2.5 million sewer budget, I mean, how much of it is irrigation money? Maybe 400,000?
That we're not paying for processing on the other end.
And, yeah,
But we're getting revenue, and people say you shouldn't be paying this.
And it doesn't hit,
And certain commission
doesn't
members said, we
hit
gotta
the
look into this.
actual
Well,
capacity
that's revenue
numbers.
that's coming in that has to be offset because it's part of the budget.
and
So keep that in mind.
we're not trying to, make it a very large rate. We realize it's kind of like a regressive tax, right? It's flat across the board, no matter what you're doing. So we always have strived towards making our rates in a way that if you're using more, you have to pay more. So we're trying to be sensitive to like, the single people, small users of the system too.
Carol?
Given the discussion we just had about capacity, the inflow and infiltration line where you have $1,000.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think that's more like a placer, I would think, at this
Correct.
point. Are there things we could be doing in terms of seeking out grants or something to be able to do more? Because that would be an area where we could potentially increase
Yeah,
capacity.
that's something that I'm going to be working on this summer. I'm looking at either contracting with a CCTV company or a consultant on doing a little bit more with I&I and doing some more investigative work that would obviously beyond the $1,000. It would have to come as sewer assessment, so I'm going to work in the coming months to put a project together to start doing something like that. Because it has been about 10 years now since we've done a project similar to that. We really want to know if we have issues in the system and tighten those up. But that's not obviously in the scope of that line. That line is more to, if we find a manhole here or a manhole there, then we
Right.
need some fixes to it.
Right. I saw there was an article, Norwich Public Utilities just got a big grant through EPA. And one of the things is they're putting a new liner in some of and that's going to greatly, help the infiltration issue, and they're expecting to get
So places like Norwich and London, these old cities that were built in the turn of the century all use vitrified clay, where our system was built only 30 years ago using all PVC. So I don't think we're going to see widespread failures like what they're seeing where pipelining makes a lot of sense.
right, okay.
But I certainly think, we'll see areas where we have, problems at joints, we'll have root intrusion issues, things like that, where we'll be doing more spot repairs and things like that. What we also need to look into are sump pumps and things like that. People are tied in illegally.
Are we going to be doing something now to approach Waterford and London about available capacity for sale?
Okay, that's not tonight.
Well, but we should be thinking about that in terms
Okay,
of
but that's
budget.
not, we'll discuss that. I mean, that's not part of the budget presentation right now. I mean, we're talking about the budget right now for approving it for
Right,
next
but
year.
I'm thinking, should we be putting something in the budget for that?
Joe, that'd be a future agenda, because Joe hasn't even addressed that yet, so rather than, like you said, we have to start looking at what we need to do first. to come up with a number right now for next month, I think would be difficult.
Oh, I'm not saying we should come up with a number right now. I'm just saying, should we begin exploration, and so we start getting some data?
Go ahead, Joe.
Is there any other question on the sewer? So I'll come forward with presenting that next month for approval. On the water side, highlights, there's a lot of needs on the water side. A lot of things are going on. We need to budget those things accordingly. This is proposing a 5% budget increase, but it looks like, and I'll get into it, you need to budget, but this side I'm projecting the water side could be on the gains of having to be at about a 10% rate increase, even though it's 5% a budget increase. And this is the problem, is to properly budget the capital on this side, there's no sewer assessment fund to bring money in from. The only thing you can bring it in from is basically a wonderful word that Anna came up with before, use of retained earnings, which is basically cash. So dipping into your cash. So this budget is proposing to dip into retained earnings by $230,000. You could take that out, but then you're not operating your budget properly. So this is the kind of the catch-all on the water side, is because I also have the capital project line on this side is actually, instead of being 10,000, I'm proposing it to be 200, because there's a lot of things going on. These guys, Ben and Matt, bring up a lot of different capital items. It's a much bigger system. It's twice the size of the sewer system. We have 7 treatment plants. We have all the pipes, booster pumps. There's just a lot more infrastructure on the water side with no sewer assessment fund to back it up. So I'll try to be a little more judicious on the line items. The bonds and principal line, we're in a spike year this year. The 765 is a spike in budget. The actual, I'm budgeting 679,000. That's kind of a plug and chug number, but that line is actually, and it says it in my notes here, is actually 116,000 more than the actual debt payment. But you can't just keep having your debt principal budget just bop all up and down, because it basically, you can't have any kind of flat budget. It goes down one year, up one year. So that's an area just to be aware that even though we had to dip into the use of retained funds, that and the other thing about that 116 is I still haven't got a number from the Director of Finance. The project that Ben and Matt are working on, the well 2A connection, which we're trying to go forward with, and we were trying to bond through the town, the 1.5 million for that project, which they're gearing up to do. I don't have the numbers of what that's going to cost in this budget, so that 116 should well enough cover any kind of impacts from that bonded project in this coming year. Other line items are jumping up. The bond interest is going way down because in this past current year, Anna wanted me to split out the interest payments for well 1A and 6 in this one, so the interest was higher and the debt was lower. So that's the chemical line is up 53%. These guys, Ben and Matt, have been working on the best pricing possible to get from the chemical companies, but the cost of the KOH and the hypo and stuff like that has gone through the roof. The next page, maintenance and transmission distribution up 38%. That we're probably going to be coming in at about $100,000 in this line item this year. Anytime you have any water main breaks, if you guys are aware, this year we had the water main break up by Village Drive. Anytime anything happens on a state road, it's $15,000-$20,000 a break. I mean, between the police details and the digging into I mean, we usually have to do like 2 or 3 different pavement repairs on it for the state. If it's 9 inches of pavement, those costs are significant. Customer records collection, 15.2. The big thing that's kicking in on this is this new meter replacement project system is all now. We're not going to have meter readers going forward. It's a FlexNet system. All the data is coming in to our computers, and that's the FlexNet system, and it's $25,000 a year for the management of all the fees associated with the towers and everything like that, and that's factored in here. Where the meter install line is going down significantly. In this past year, I think I had 4 meter installers that were budgeted. We're probably gonna be down to about 1.5, 2 next year, and we're just the project's winding down in next year, so that we were able to minimize that cost. Interconnection, we're just figuring, we've been just taking more money, taking more water from New London for summers like this, and it's got to be budgeted accordingly. This year, we budgeted 78,000. It's going to be about 100,000 that we took. So I'm trying to have a more realistic number. And the biggest line that jumps out at the end is vehicle acquisition. We are proposing 1 new truck out of the whole fleet. There's 1 truck that's I want to say it's a 2006 vintage. It's a classic. It's beyond it can't be driven. And then the capital projects line is the biggest thing, is going up from 10,000 to 200,000. And as Ken mentioned before, we have to have, we should have some parameters of what triggers a capital project like this. This is essential because there's so many things going on in the booster pump stations and the wells that could gobble up $20,000 at a snap of a finger. And there's really no line item in this budget that really can absorb those kind of hits. So that's that capital project line. And if we don't end up spending it and we can just turn it back, then it's less money that's coming out of use of retained earnings. And there is more line items on revenue, and we are charging a minimum. We are charging a minimum usage fee, which is helpful. We are going to be renegotiating the cell towers on the Boston Post Road tank this summer. I don't know what that'd be. Hopefully we can get a higher, that comes in under lease rental. That's for the cell towers on the tank at the transfer station and Boston Post Road. But one of those leases is coming up. And this year we did bill out for private hydrants. The number is much higher this year. We billed out the state at the prison for all their hydrants. We never done that before, which was a good thing. I did talk to the Board of Finance, and we're getting that 10% increase in the town fire hydrant fees. So that's been up. That's now almost 63,000. When we started this discussion, it was at 15. So it's come up $48,000. So that's in a gist. If I can answer any questions on the water budget.
Any questions on the water budget? Carol?
I don't know how to ask this delicately, Kevin, but I see that we're putting in to pay a portion of the first selectman's salary?
Yes, because here again, my time, unfortunately, if I'm going to have to dedicate several hours a week to water and sewer, which is separate from the town, I think that's not same thing, Joe's part of his salary is, part of Kevin Gervais' salary is.
Right.
So because of the time and effort we have to put in with water and sewer functions.
I didn't know if there was something that happened in particular where the first selectman's office was spending unusual time on water issues?
No, I'm spending probably about 3 to 4 hours a week, and that's about what that comes out to if you over the course of a year.
You don't get any additional money, right?
No.
It just comes out of a different bucket.
No, it just that
Clear
the
book.
Historically,
Paid in cash.
his-
We're a public control, so we don't fall under the town budget.
historically, we've never paid any portion of the,
No.
so this is the first time ever.
Mhm.
And it's only on the water side, not on the sewer side. And I thought that it was part of the first selectman hat, so to speak, that I didn't think that would be an issue like.
To be honest with you, like I said, I honestly think that we need to reconsider whether the first selectman should be the chair of the water and sewer, because the fact that it's a separate organization to where you basically are really running in charge of 2 separate parts of the town, I think would much better if, and it's not a charter thing, it's an ordinance, I think it'd be better if the first selectman were ex officio, and then you could save some money, because then the salary will go back into the board of selectmen line item. But I think that's something that needs to be brought up again in a future agenda item or a discussion, because the police at first the first selectman was a member of the police commission. He's now ex officio, because here again, you don't get two votes basically on possibly the same item. And here again, I'm not supposed to consider the town side when I'm sitting here. I'm supposed to strictly, and to be honest with you, as much as you try to do that, you can't help it. I mean, because you're also representing the town. And I do get a lot of calls during the course of a week. If someone's not happy with their water bill, they call me. And I'm serious, I do get calls on, and you know, which is okay, because now I do wear that hat. But here again, I shouldn't be able to go down there and intercede as a first selectman, or you know, so you know, I think those are some discussions to have. I know initially it was something that they liked having done, but you know, I think that's not on the agenda, not for discussion tonight. But those are just a couple thoughts I have.
Well, in the original, the charter, the reason that the first selection was the chairman, it was based on 4 Democrats or 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans, and the chairman, whoever the town elected, was the deciding. That was the way it was originally set up.
It's set up in the ordinance, so the actual that is being first selectman is an ordinance, it's not the charter.
Yeah,
Okay, all right.
It's not in the charter, it's in an ordinance.
Okay.
Because I read the ordinance, and
Because,
that's,
you know,
that's where it specifies the first.
Well, it just actually, the chemicals that it's a really good question you had, Carol, too, regarding that. But here again, I was at a council of government meeting, and I'm bringing up, are you guys still feeling the impact of the the towns that have it, the increase in chemicals? And they said, what are you talking about? Because none of them are involved in water and sewer. In New London, Waterford, they have what's the name of the company? Aviola. That they take care of it. All they know is they charge the customers a certain rate. They're not involved at all with water and sewer, because it's a private entity totally.
I guess I just, I know the commitment and the involvement of the first selectman in things water and sewer is definitely a significant hat. And, so I'm not really questioning that. I'm just, historically, that's just
Well, I think
been part
also,
and parcel of.
but it's also involving more and more of my time, so I think it's only fair. So if you'd like to entertain a motion to,
I was more,
Okay.
that it was unusual. How shall I say it? It's never been done. I mean, that's always been part of the first selectman hat, and the town has always.
it is, there's no more money. I'm not getting extra money, Carol.
I know you're not getting extra
Okay.
money. This isn't about you. I know you're not getting extra money, but I know the water budget is very, 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 very tight. And, we're clawing our way back in so many areas, and then all of a sudden, even though it's a small percentage of the first selectman's salary, it's a payment that's never been before, that's never been a requirement before. And that's where I'm coming from, that.
Do you require any further action from us tonight?
No, I mean.
Okay, let's move on. I mean,
Yeah,
I think,
yeah.
okay.
It should make it much smoother for next month, because everything's
Okay.
been going over.
Okay.
Moving on, Chairman's report. We've been here a long time. Just Route 1, the only thing I'll bring up is 161, Exit 74. You've seen, this is the big year for utilities, which includes ours and Eversource. So lots of delays on 161 from the Four Corners to down by Industrial Park Road coming up over the next several months. And 4.5 years down the road, we're going to say, wow, it's really nice now. And we'll have that, yes, that's what they said. So anyway, yeah, they'll be ready for repaving. So
I just got one question. Anything on Rocky Neck about new pump?
no, I don't think there's anything on that. Because that's always a question we keep having is, are they ever going to want to tie in? And they haven't really said anything over a while. And we are trying to, if we do have to rebuild that pump house, we'd love to have them help us and give us some spot on their area, but nothing.
Is that a rental next to the road there?
Yeah, I saw that too.
No, that one is ours.
That's ours.
There's an issue with one of the pumps, and we're actually waiting on parts. We're hoping to get it before June, which the manufacturers told us is when it's going to be available. But we're still working on trying to see if there's other stock available or
Yeah.
other means of obtaining that.
And, oh, one other thing too was, Carol, this is the month of the woman, and Karen, tomorrow night there's going to be a little bit of a recognition at Rosa Negra. The owner there is recognizing about 7 women in town, which there could be a whole lot more just for all they've done to help support their community. Just a few people: Pat Payne from Care and Share, Cal Morelli from the Public Trust, Rita Rivera, who helps out at Main Street, Rena David Powers, who the Blue Door provides hospital equipment to people and so forth like that, and a few more. And I'm sorry that I'm leaving a couple people out, but that women that have and continue to make a big difference in our town. That's it. For staff updates, the monthly reports here, again, Kevin's not here. I just asked him how it's going, because he's up the other end. He says they just started into the question phase up at the, of that meeting up there, so.
It does feel better.
Yeah. Moving on, future agenda items.
No, I got
Oh, I'm
one-
sorry.
I've
Okay.
got one thing. Mr. North, can you please tell me an estimate of when the 6-month-long bagged hydrant on Boston Post Road
Yes.
will be fixed?
Yes, we are also waiting on parts for that one. And I just talked to my superintendent the other day, and I said, I'm going to get pinged on this again. I hope that those parts are coming. He said, I will check on them again and make sure that we're getting them.
It just
Yeah.
seemed, it's been like 6 months with a yellow bag there, and
Yeah.
that's the hydrant right there where they just put in those new condos
Yep.
and all those buildings or something like that. And that'd be hell if they had a lay a line.
If I find out it's going to be another couple months, we'll just put in a new hydrant. I'll have to come ask for money for a hydrant, but
What's the
Yeah.
cost
Hey,
for
that's why we have the
what's
cap.
the cost for a new hydrant?
cost for a hydrant just for the hydrants about $5,000-6,000. Yeah, they've gone up 200%.
Everything's gone up, sadly.
Well, you can't get them either.
Yeah,
I had a
right.
question.
Okay, Steve.
I think I got a couple, but
The replacement of the meters for the schools, are we?
yeah. So
that?
yep,
That's
we
a
just
good
finished the design. We're talking to the school now. We're going to get some pricing so that they can be better informed about what we think that's going to cost, and we'll have more on that in the coming months. But
That's cost sharing, right? With the Board of Ed?
That's 100% on them.
yeah,
100%?
we'll
This
front it.
commission will need to determine a number of years. What we're trying to do is get the exact number of what it's gonna cost. Say if it's $80,000, then we'll figure, this commission should figure they need to pay it back over 8 years at whatever the stiff is, because that money is coming out of sewer assessment, and sewer assessment should not have to be paying for water meters in
Yeah,
schools.
stiff is up around over 4%
Yeah,
right now,
so
so
whatever,
that's a
yeah,
lot.
so they'll be paying interest on that, and if, then you guys set that thing, and the one condition, and I did talk to the business manager up there, is we're not making them pay in this coming year, because then they didn't budget it. So if we give them it now and expect the first payment is 24, 25, say it's 8 years at $8,000 a year, they're gonna have to pay it. And that's just for the high school property.
Okay.
So we should know soon, and hopefully we can put them in the summer.
Putting two of them in, right?
Yeah, one on Boston
Yeah.
Post Road and
Right.
one
Yeah.
on Chesterfield Road.
Okay, thanks.
No, we're doing meter boxes at the
Yeah.
road.
Yeah, they're gonna.
They're
A little
gonna pay,
bit to the
they're gonna
property.
pay the leakage of their system.
Yeah, they need to be in vaults, so that's part of the cost that's associated with that. But we've got some good value engineering ideas that we're going to be using to try to keep the cost to a minimum, but still accomplish what we want to do there.
Any other comments? Okay, we have the future agenda items.
I think, given tonight's meeting, we have to add a C on there and start discussing either a committee or something to do sewer capacity and what we can do to get it.
Can we buy Dave's capacity?
I don't, my personal
You go out to the
thing,
highest bidder.
well, my personal thing with
Okay,
capacity.
so we'll add a C sewer
That's
capacity.
a good point.
is to not even look for capacity until we send too much to them.
Yeah, we need to move forward. I think that.
I beg to differ because you want to be in a good negotiating position. You don't want to be approaching to buy capacity when your back is totally against the wall.
Okay, we need to leave capacity alone for the rest of the night.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, motion to adjourn. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.